We begin our literary festival with poetry. Our first reader is Carson Colenbaugh, a junior horticulture student at Clemson University who hails from Kennesaw, Georgia. His poetry, which was part of the first SWU Literary Festival, focuses on his experiences as a student and scientist in the Southern Appalachians, and his work attempts to translate those moments while establishing a clear sense of regional identity. He hopes that listeners will walk away from his poetry feeling more connected to their own personal ecology.
Hello, my name is Carson Colenbaugh, and today I'll be reading 3 poems. The first poem is called Passage Through Mountains, and it's about the Jocassee Gorges. Listening to the public radio, the Don Quixote suite with electric applause, on Rocinante traveling Forest Service roads. 1. Introduced to the locals on the side of the path. Budweiser, king of beers. Nokia phone, a corpse of Pepsi Cola, 1970 cents rusted through. Trampled natural light, Smirnoff Ice, old tail light, and liters of slush. There are other things can't say their name. Ipomea, Silphium, Amphicarpea, Simplocos. Have to look at the veins. Have to feel the pubescence on the top of your tongue. 2. The Blue Ridge Escarpment is the second wettest spot in the country, with moist spirals coming from the Gulf and the Atlantic, equidistant and holding innumerable sprouts, sweet birch, bite of wintergreen. At noon, pounding rain pools on hardpan, the precipitant, the liquid slurry of the sponge earth. 3. There is the man in the mountain who we found on the journey. He said, "Look in the stone pools, check for salamanders. Do not linger in areas with many standing dead hemlock trees." The public radio clicks off with the opening truck door, left with the rustle of snails in flight. This next piece is called Dendrochronology, and it's about doing research on the history of fire in the Southern Appalachians. At the foot of the tree there is a lip, and there is a lip beyond that. Each turn marks the fold of fire in season gone by. Some toss cigarette in 1948, the lightning of the last century, burning branches of Virginia pine thrown about by Cherokee hunters in their deerskin pelts. I am told each time the cavity closes it holds pitch, and sometimes that pitch keeps those gaping scars alive and well even after the slough of bark and moss have reduced these woods to sweet black powder. Eating beef sticks by the telephone tower. The hawks search for lunch through the sweeping gropes of fog. This third piece is called Persistence of Memory, and it's about the old site of the Russell family homestead on what is now Highway 28. This was one of the Cherokee lower towns in what is now South Carolina during the 17th and 18th centuries. This was a busy Appalachian farmstead in the late 1800s and early 1900s. This is a roadside stopover on Highway 28 that flanks the Chattooga River. Was the smallest of the lower towns in 1721 when it appeared as Chattooga, with only 90 inhabitants in that year's British census of Cherokee towns. Could hear the laughter of children playing in the creek, lowing cattle and clucking chickens as they searched for food. Where years ago I loaded inner tubes for an 8-hour float beneath old rope and kudzu monoliths. Was on a made trading path that crossed the Chattooga River and connected lower towns in what is now South Carolina to what is now Georgia and North Carolina. Built a small house in 1867 and enlarged it 3 times over the next 40 years to accommodate his growing family and guests. Is paved for 6 feet and fenced in to prevent F-250s with logging equipment from crushing the old front porch. Shows that the town was largely abandoned by 1740. Flocked to the area that is now Highlands, North Carolina to escape the hot South Carolina summers. Is fit with a broken barn, snakeskin pinned between old slats of board, empty rooms, nails dark like charcoal and soaked moss of spring house. Accounts of expeditions to this area in 1760 to 1761 do not mention it. Was a welcome sight when they rounded the curve and spied the large house. Has no firing, no hides, no echo of voices between twigs of heirloom walnut branches. Where the last Cherokee to live here sold his land in 1816. Where the Russell family provided overnight lodging and good home-cooked meals for weary travelers. Where I tie my nylon shoelace against the muddy bank of the Spring Creek. Coneflower, purple clover, and rust.